Don't mind my Cuban accent, y'all. It's gonna happen. Yep, it's gonna happen. Harry Potter. What's up, you guys? It's Danny here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Harry Potter and the Cursed Child by the amazing J.K. Rowling, John Tiffany, and Jack Thorne. So if you haven't heard anything about this book, I mean, it's in book format, but it is a play script for a new play playing in London. I'm not going to spoil anything in this part of the review, but eventually I'm going to get to a part where I am going to spoil you, so I'll let you know when we get there, okay? But this part of the review is going to be non-spoiling. I read the book at a very slow pace on purpose because I didn't want it to end. Again, it's been so long since we've, as Harry Potter fans, have had another Harry Potter book, so I really didn't want it to end. When I was getting to the last parts of the scene, I was like, no, it's gonna finish and I don't have anything else to read Harry Potter related. The scenes in the book move on very, very quickly, which is one of the things I didn't really enjoy about it. But again, it is a play, so in plays, you know, you go from like year 1 to year 3 very quickly, just because that's the way plays work. So it was kind of expected, but at the same time unexpected. I wish it was longer, so hopefully, you know, Joe develops the story later on so we can get a little bit more of the background of the story and the future of Harry Potter. One of the things I found most exciting is that McGonagall is the new headmistress at Hogwarts. And obviously that was something I expected to happen because, you know, Dumbledore died and she was kind of like the next in line. She was the new queen. And also another really cool thing is that Neville is a professor at Hogwarts. I don't remember it specifying what kind of professor he was, but I would think it would be in herbology, and it's probably somewhere in the book, but I forgot, you guys, so I'm not gonna go back and tell you. Harry is much older, and there is something going on with his scar. He's kind of feeling pain in his scar because he's having these dreams, and it's kind of like he's going back to the past when he was 11 years old. He's having all these weird dreams and he doesn't know what's going on, so he thinks that Voldemort is back because his scar is in pain. It's kind of like a signal, obviously, that Voldemort's back. The dreams were really cool because it brought you back to the original story of Harry Potter. It made me feel a little bit melancholic and I wanted to cry a little bit, and I was like, oh my god. A lot goes on in this book. It's been exactly 22 years since the Battle of Hogwarts, where they defeated Voldemort. So a lot has happened. Everyone's grown up. Hermione, Ron, Harry, Ginny, they have children. And this story is actually going to follow their kids. And that's really cool because we get to see 3 kids. The way I pictured them in my head while I was reading the book was very similar to how I picture Harry, Hermione, and Ron when they first met at the Hogwarts Express when they were going to Hogwarts for the first time. So it was really exciting to kind of picture that in my head and bring myself back to when I was 11 and I was reading the series. So yes, it took me back to my old memories and I was really happy about it. In this book, we meet Albus Severus, the son of Ginny and Harry, and he is kind of the main protagonist of the book, and it kind of follows Albus, but it also follows his other 2 friends, the son of Draco and Astoria, Scorpius. And Scorpius is such a cool kid, seriously. I had a lot of laughs with Scorpius because he kind of reminded me a lot of Ron, but in a completely different, more quirky, very awkward at times, and just funny overall. So I really liked his character and what he brought to the table. His relationship with Rose, who is Hermione's and Ron's daughter, reminded me a lot of Hermione and Ron themselves when they were meeting for the first time, and it was really awkward at the train. There was candy everywhere, and yeah, there was like an exchange of looks. So it was very similar to that, the way that Rose's relationship is with Scorpius. The kids meet because they're gonna go to their first year at Hogwarts, and their parents take them to platform 9 3/4, and that's where the story picks up. Obviously, we know that that happened on Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 movie. So that very, very end is where the beginning of this book picks up. So we kind of have a continuation of the story before, and the world is already set up for us. So it's very easy to imagine what's happening. We already know about the magic, we know the spells, we know the history of Hogwarts, the history of the world, we know what happened with Voldemort and Dumbledore and the whole shebang. So we know everything that happened before. So the story doesn't have to be repeated, it's already set for us, and it picks up right at the end of Deathly Hallows Part 2. One of the things I didn't like about Harry in the story is that he wants his son to have the exact same experience as he did at Hogwarts. He wants him to make the same friends. It's like he's not really understanding his son. He understands what it's like to be famous out of nowhere, but I feel like he doesn't understand what his son is going through because his son now has a high expectation to follow on his dad's footsteps. We see that there is a lot of conflict between Harry and Albus from the beginning of the story. The story is all about how these three kids are affected by their parents' successes and failures in the past and how that's going to play out in the story. I don't want to ruin the plot for you, but there's time traveling. Something's gonna happen, they have to go into the past. That's all I'm gonna tell you guys because I don't want to spoil it for you. But it's very action-packed. We go into Hogwarts, the kids go on top of a train, there's action everywhere. Someone throws an Avada Kedavra in there, so just so you know, it's gonna happen. So if you haven't read the story, I'm going to stop you right there because I want you to come back. There's so much to discuss, and I promise you guys I'm going to be right here for you, but please don't get spoiled. Read the book. It's a very quick read, and it's a very good read, and it's going to be very short. Read your story, come back, and we'll discuss it together. Yes. One thing I didn't enjoy was the fact that the voice was very different from Joe. We know that the story wasn't written only by Joe, it was written also by Jack Thorne and John Tiffany, but the voice is so different that I almost found myself kind of putting the book down at times because I didn't feel like I was reading Joe's story or her past writing styles. Also, one thing that I didn't enjoy that much was that it felt like a little bit of a fan fiction because it was very fast paced, things happened so quickly. So let's start with the crazy rumor of Scorpius being the son of Voldemort. I mean, when I heard this, I was like, Voldemort had a son? How did this happen? I didn't know that Voldemort can have sex. Like, I mean, you know, I always pictured him like this weird reptilian thing with red eyes in the book. And then you learn that he could have had sexual intercourse with a woman. And you're like, what? When did that happen? And I was like, oh my God, is it true? Is he really the son of Voldemort? But we learned later on, obviously, that he's not. But that there's another one. I felt so uncomfortable picturing him with a child because he's such an uncomfortable person. You know, in Deathly Hallows Part 2, when he's going to hug Draco, he's like, awkward. The three kids meet at the Hogwarts Express, just like their parents did. So we get to Hogwarts and the sorting is happening and Albus gets sorted into Slytherin. What? What? No. In Harry's story, we know that the sorting hat gives him the chance to choose between Slytherin or Hogwarts, but Slytherin or Hogwarts. You see, I can't even think straight right now. Between Slytherin or Gryffindor, but with Albus, he gets sorted into Slytherin right away, and he's as shocked as everyone else, but hey, it happens, and Slytherin is just as an awesome house with powerful people. So you fit in there, boy. And then there's a flying lesson and Rose's broom goes up really quickly. And again, Rose is the daughter of Hermione and Ron. So that was kind of cool because we know that in the first movie, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Hermione's broom won't go up as quickly. And then Rose is just like up, very different from her mom. Right away, they're back at the platform. They're getting picked up from the first year. And Harry's like, well, I suggest that you make more friends. And Albus is like, well, I made a friend, right? Is that not good enough? And he's like, well, you kind of have to make more. And he's like, well, I don't want any more. I got my friend. And that kind of annoyed me a little bit because Harry, in a way, was trying to be the good dad, right? He's trying to be the best dad he can, but he's never had a dad, which is kind of really sad, you guys, here. But, you know, he's never had a dad. He doesn't know what it's like to be a dad. And obviously we know that there's no rule book to being a dad. So he's having a lot of difficulty, this poor guy. I was like, I want to go into the story and give him some tips. Like, dude, Google it. And I was like, cringe. Then Harry's having dreams again. And it kind of brings you back to when he was having dreams when Voldemort was alive. And he was a Horcrux. Spoiler, if you haven't read the story and you're still here, which you shouldn't be, Harry is a Horcrux. So yeah, yep, he's gotta die, but he'll come back to life. Yeah. Harry dreams of the moment in the lighthouse when Hagrid brought him the cake and told him he was a wizard, and then his car starts hurting. What? Is that supposed to mean something? Ginny is like, how long has your scar been hurting for, right? You haven't told me anything. And he's like, 22 years. And I was like, oh, poor boy, you better get that forehead checked. Then we're back in the train with the kids. Albus finds out about the time turner. He doesn't know the consequences of his actions, but then they jump off the train. and go on with it. And Ginny, Draco, Hermione, and Harry are at Harry's house. And then Draco tells him that he is a consistent curse in their family. And you're like, well, I guess that's where the title comes in, right? Then they take Polyjuice Potion and they turn into their own parents. And you're like, do you see anything wrong with that? And I was like, yo, some trouble's gonna happen here, but not as much as you think. Trying to stop Hermione so she won't go into her office. Have to get to the bookcase, and inside the bookcase all these books are coming out with these weird riddles, and they have to solve them, because if they don't solve them, the bookcase will swallow them. And I can't properly picture how that was happening. I don't know if like the books were kind of opening into humongous books with mouths and they were eating them alive and pulling them back into the bookcase. And then Harry goes into the Forbidden Forest and he finds Bane, who is a centaur. It's kind of like, I know where your son is, and there's a dark cloud around him. Good luck. And then he leaves. And Harry's like, what does that mean? That's a centaur for you, right? Thanks for the encouragement, Bane. Then we're in the scene where the kids already have the time turner and they go back to the Triwizard Tournament and sit by Hermione. This is the part of the Triwizard Tournament where they're battling the dragons. They basically cast a spell, and I think it's to take Cedric's wand, so he would be able to cast his own spell. And then the time turner turns back, because apparently you can only be in the past for 5 minutes. It's like a glitch or something that the time turner has, so they go back in time, and then Albus's arm is broken. They take him to the hospital wing, and Harry's kind of there, and he's talking to Dumbledore's portrait, and I found that again really melancholic. You know, Dumbledore's dead, but his portrait is kind of alive. And then Harry's like, you can't hang out with Scorpius. And Albus is like, but Scorpius is my best friend. And he's like, well, Bane told me that there's a black cloud around you and it must be Scorpius. He tells him that he's gonna watch his every move. And this is like where Albus gets even more rebellious. Ron appears out of nowhere and he reveals that he has a child named Panju. And he's married to Padma, not Hermione. So apparently when they change the time back at the Jewel Ball, instead of Ron dancing with Hermione, he danced with Padma and they fell in love and they had a child, and Hermione became a totally bitter professor. Hermione is a new Defense of Dark Arts teacher, like dark. She's totally picking on Albus, just like Snape used to pick on Harry. She's taking points from Gryffindor back and forth for anything Albus says. Then Harry threatens McGonagall. That's where I was like, yo, I'm gonna go into the story myself and I'm gonna stop you. Because how can you threaten her? Seriously? No. No. This woman put you in those little sheets. She dropped you off at the house when you were a really tiny baby. And this is how you repay her? By telling her that she better do the best she can, or you're going to come back with the full force of the Ministry to hunt her down? No, Harry. No. You need to get your stuff together. I'm thinking like, this is the way Jo kind of pictured the story going into different ways. And she's like, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna change the story a million times. I'm gonna give them all the endings that I would have probably have had in the story if, you know, the story went a certain way. So she's kind of going back in time and giving us different endings. That's kind of like my theory behind it. Maybe I'm right. Yeah. And then now, Dolores Umbridge is back. With her full asshole-ish power. She's like, for Voldemort and Valor. There is a Voldemort day. What? Voldemort has taken over the world in this realm. Cedric is a Death Eater. What? This is probably the worst of the futures that Jo could have made for us. And Harry has died over 20 years ago. So obviously, Albus doesn't exist anymore. This is the part of the book where Scorpius is all by himself. He's supposed to be this super dark kid in this world. They call him the Scorpion King. And he kind of came up with the idea of locking up the mudbloods in cells. Yep, he's pretty evil in this world. And Snape is alive! This is the only part of this future that I liked, or this realm, is that Snape is alive and he's back. And I was like, yes! So happy to hear about Snape again. So happy to see him in wording. And then they meet Hermione and Ron. And Hermione is like this badass warrior. And Scorpio tells them again about how they're supposed to be married and have kids. And Hermione looks at Ron over and she's like, don't get any ideas, Weasley. And I was like, girl, you on fire. And then we find out that Delphi was the evil one the whole time, and she is Voldemort's daughter. So yes, Voldemort has a daughter, and he had sex with Bellatrix right before he was defeated in the war. So now I'm kind of going back to the movies and kind of picturing them, you know, in the Malfoy residence having sexual intercourse. It's not a very happy image up here. No, no, no. It was all because of the prophecy. When spares are spared, when time is turned, when unseen children murder their fathers, then will the Dark Lord return. When spares are spared, basically Cedric was the spare. He wants to go back in time and spare Cedric so she can fulfill this prophecy. Then they're back in the maze, and it gets really sad again because we see Cedric alive and he saves them from Delphi. Then they're back at Godric's Hollow, and basically they want to go back so they can stop Delphi from killing Harry. But then they realize that Delphi's not coming. They're like, what's wrong? Isn't she supposed to come to kill Harry so Voldemort won't kill him? And then they realize that Delphi is going back, but not to kill Harry. She's going back to stop Voldemort from killing Harry so she can fulfill the prophecy, and also so she can meet her father. Everybody's deciding who's gonna turn into Voldemort so they can meet with Delphi and they can stop her, and everybody's like, yeah, I volunteer as tribute. And Harry's like, I have to do it, obviously. So Harry turns into Voldemort. Delphi meets with him, but then she kind of realizes a little bit iffy that he's not Voldemort. Albus is kind of like, why aren't you gonna do something to her? And Harry's like, no, we're not murderers. We're gonna send her back to Azkaban. Then Voldemort comes into the scene. They're watching basically Voldemort kill his parents. It was really difficult for Harry. I mean, to have to watch his parents die when he can actually go and stop Voldemort. But you know, he has to let history happen because otherwise history will be changed again and the world will go into complete chaos. And that can't happen again. And then obviously we had to have a scene between father and son where they made up. So they are at the graveyard where Cedric's body is decomposed. Harry is kind of like trying to break the ice a little bit. So he's like, you know, I'm also scared of things. Albus is like, what can Harry Potter possibly be scared of? And he's like, well, I'm kind of scared of pigeons. And he's like, pigeons? They're just staring into nothingness. And they're like, I hope it's going to be a nice day. And Albus is kind of like, so do I. The end. I personally love this story. I think that we got a completely new story from not only Joe, but people that saw the story in a very different way and wanted to give it an edge. So they kind of went back in time and trying to change history, and all these things happened. So I'm just happy that we got something after book 7. And the reason I went into it with such a positive mindset and that I came out from it with such a positive mindset is the fact that I haven't read a Harry Potter book in so long. And to me, having something from Joe and having something based in the Harry Potter world is just astonishing. So yes, I loved it, you guys. If you haven't picked it up, do so. It's going to be a great book to add to your Harry Potter story collection. And yes, I'm missing a couple of books up here because there's some box that I can't find right now and I can't show them to you guys, but yes. Harry Potter collection. A little bit of Sarah J. Maas back here just because it kind of looks like the same colors and same style of hardback. Thank you for sticking with me and watching this video. If you liked it, please subscribe at the bottom so you can receive notifications of when I post new videos. You guys have an awesome day and I will see you on the next video.